and welcome to all of my friends and family members and any random strangers that I've managed to strong arm into tuning in for the very first episode of Stop Me If You've Read This One, the podcast / YouTube series where we take deep dives together into 2000s young adult fiction that you may or may not remember reading. If you're listening to this episode at work or something like that, I hope that you're having a really nice day, and I hope that it's not too productive because the man really doesn't deserve your productivity. And I want you to keep that in mind. If you are half watching on YouTube, thank you for half watching my beautiful face. I would like to direct your attention to the wall behind me. This is my crown jewel for right now, this PETA poster that came in the Us Weekly special edition of the Hunger Games magazine that I bought on eBay. I actually have an even more exciting edition coming in the mail that I also just bought off of eBay, which is a Edward Cullen Volvo New Moon tie-in poster. So it's a poster of the Volvo that he drives in the New Moon movie, and then Edward Cullen standing next to it, and then it says Twilight New Moon and the release date of the movie up at the top, and I spent $20 on that. So yeah, that'll be up in the next episode, and I hope that that's a good enough reason for you to come back. Before we get started talking about the Princess Diaries, I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of an introduction, mostly to brag. And I would like to brag about the fact that I was a teen girl during the best time to be a teen girl. Like, fuck Beatlemania, okay? Because when I was a teen girl, One Direction was still together. The Twilight and Hunger Games franchises were actively releasing movies. Teen Vogue was still a print magazine, which came to my house. I had a subscription. They don't do that anymore, okay? And Margaret Thatcher died. And I got to live through all of that. That's so fun and cool. Anyway, for me specifically, there wasn't a ton to do back then because I lived in the middle of nowhere. So I would bike 6 miles to the library, which is really like the only place my little chicken legs could get me to. And I would go right to the teen zone, all right? And I feel like every library has a teen zone, but I remember the teen zone being just this corner of this little library, and it had those, you know, like the gamer chairs, like that kind of look like a J that sort of rock back and forth. There's no arms or anything, like they're like a menace to society. It had a couple of those, and then some kind of cool patterned rug, and then it had a few shelves of young adult fiction. And I read every single one of those little bitches. Like, I read every book on that shelf. Anything I could get my hands on, I would read. And I probably read like 82 different knockoffs of the Twilight franchise, and every time it was like page turner, like cover to cover, I was reading it. And I have never achieved that kind of pacing as a reader since then. Like, I don't even come close now, and I'm not even gonna blame it on gifted kid burnout or something like that. Like, I don't know what that is. All I know is that I wasn't allowed to have a cell phone until I was like 16 or 17, and when I was allowed to have a cell phone, it was all over. Like, Snapchat ruined my life, basically. These days, I spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about books that I read 10 years ago, and I just kind of thought it would be fun to sit in this kind of shitty recreation of my childhood bedroom and talk about them with you. Just a couple more things before we get into it, I swear. First, I'm probably not going to be doing deep dives into like the big five. I consider the 5 biggest books of that era to be Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Twilight, Divergent, and Percy Jackson. There's just not really a whole lot for me to add. You know, I feel like there are way smarter and more interesting people who have had more nuanced discussions about those books. They're also just not as fun for me to talk about. You already remember them. I want to talk about the B list, the C list, the D list, like getting into the pits. It's crazy down there. And that's what I want to talk about. I'm going to be focusing on books that were published more or less between the years of 2000 and 2014. And that's just the parameter I made up in my head because it made sense. But it turns out that 2000 to about 2014 is considered to be the second golden age of young adult literature, so I'm really smart for coming up with that by myself. Plus, after 2014, my brain became less mushy and malleable, so the books that came after that in 2015, 2016, etc. just don't hit as hard. Also, this is going to be spoiler city. Like, I'm going to spoil every single book that we talk about here, and maybe even some other books sort of tangentially. So if you don't want to hear spoilers for any of these books, then you need to go read them and come back and we will talk about them. I don't even feel sorry because you've had at least 10 years to read these books. So yeah, Spoiler City is sort of like a blanket spoiler announcement. And the last thing on my list, which is very important as well, and this is mostly for people who already know me in real life, this disclaimer. When I talk about school or what grade I was in or being in the 8th grade, whatever, okay, if I reference myself and school, I want you to know that I did not actually go to school. So after the 2nd grade, I did not set foot in a school again until I was in college. And so anytime I'm talking about school or me being in school, I wasn't there. My friends are going to get in the comments and they're going to be like, when you were in 8th grade, weren't you in your kitchen? Yes, I was in my kitchen. Okay, but I still went through 8th grade. And just to rapid fire answer all of the questions I've been getting forever, I was not homeschooled for religious reasons. I believe that science is real. I had plenty of friends. I probably had more friends than you. And that is a brag. I probably did. I got out of the house plenty. I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I went to prom. Everybody was so worried about me going to the prom. And I don't know why. I went to the prom with my high school boyfriend. I had a high school boyfriend, okay? And we went to the prom. And the prom was kind of boring and it kind of sucked. All right, so I had the normal prom experience. I'm sure that the only other homeschool person you've ever met was super weird. And I'm sure that you think I'm very normal and chill and cool. And you never in a million years would have guessed that I was homeschooled. And that would be because I am almost 24. So I've had plenty of time to practice being normal. That is all the time I have for that. I am not answering any more questions about being homeschooled, but just keep that in the back of your mind, and I will keep it in the back of my mind. Now that we've talked about all of that, I am going to put on this lovely tiara that I purchased just to talk about Princess Diaries, and we're going to talk about Princess Diaries. About a month ago, I put a poll on my Instagram story asking if my followers remember reading the Princess Diaries, and 79% of the people who responded said that they didn't even know that it was a book, which is absolutely wild to me. Because not only is it a book, there are actually 11 novels in the Princess Diaries series. The first book came out in May of 2000. It was published by Harper after being rejected by 17 different publishers before that. Just for the record, this is a HarperCollins hater haven. Fuck HarperCollins. Anyway, the very last Princess Diaries book, Royal Wedding, was published June of 2015. But the word on the street is that there's actually another book coming out, I think this month, and it is somehow COVID related, so I don't really know what that's gonna look like, but keep your eyes peeled, I guess, when you go to Barnes & Noble. I consider Megan Cabot to be one of the heavy hitters of the 2000s YA genre, but specifically, it's like a subgenre, which, for lack of a better term, I will say is like chick lit for kids. So, you've got Princess Diaries, you've got Airhead, which is this book about like a TV falling on this girl's head at a mall opening, and when she wakes up, she's like body swapped with a supermodel. That's an excellent book, and we will be talking about it. 1-800 Where Are You, which is the Mediator series, I believe. How to Be Popular. Like, she's written a lot. She's actually written over 50 books for teens and adults, and she kind of just keeps going. And yeah, one last thing you need to know about Meg Cabot is that Meg is short for Megan, and Megan is spelled Meggin. But yeah, the Princess Diaries, arguably her most iconic book series. I guess if you're among the 21% of people that I know that knew it was a book, you might agree with me. The third movie is on the horizon. There's another COVID-related book coming out. Seems like a great time to talk about it. So let me set the scene for you on page 1, okay? It is Tuesday, September 23rd, presumably 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. We are introduced to our protagonist, Mia Thermopolis, and Mia starts out by saying, "Sometimes it seems like all I ever do is lie." And that is such a good way to start off a diary, okay? That's how you know it's going to be good. So she's writing in this diary kind of under duress because her mom feels like it's going to be a good way for her to work through her feelings. And Mia's like, oh my god, no one can know that I'm writing in a diary at school, or they're gonna make fun of me and I'm gonna be dead. Now, specifically, the feelings that she is supposed to be writing about are her feelings regarding the fact that her mother, Helen Thermopolis, is dating her algebra teacher, Mr. Giannini. Now, how does Mia feel about this? A little bit iffy, if we're being honest. Mia also describes herself in the very first entry. She says that she's 5'9", flat-chested, and a freshman, and that these three things together make her the biggest freak in the entire school. Just a quick side note for you, if you are familiar with the movie at all. The movie takes place in San Francisco, but the book takes place in New York City, in Manhattan. I don't really know why they made the change. Personally, I like that it's in New York because I am an East Coast girly until I die, and it is the center of my universe. Anyway, in the very next entry, Mia's best friend, Lily Moscovitz, is introduced, and she's actually sticking up for Mr. Giannini and saying that he's actually pretty cool. And Mia hardcore disagrees. She says that if Mr. Giannini were cool, he wouldn't be dating her mom, and he wouldn't make her stay late after school every day to practice the foil method, because Mia is very much flunking algebra, and that will come up many, many times. As soon as Lily is introduced, it's very clear that she's very opinionated, she's very outspoken, and she's kind of the brains behind the operation with the two of them, you know? She comes up with the plans, and Mia carries them out. The next thing we know, Mia is hanging out in her gifted and talented class, which is just basically a big joke in the book because the woman who teaches the gifted and talented class just goes to the teacher's lounge and, like, fucks off. Mia is using her gifted and talented time to write in her diary, specifically about how grossed out she is by the idea of her mother and Mr. Giannini tongue kissing. And she says that she actually saw Josh Richter with his tongue down Lana Weinberger's throat last week, and that, you know, if it were Josh Richter, she probably wouldn't actually mind it if that happened to her. Now, this is the first time we are hearing about Josh Richter. It will not be the last. Mia Thermopolis is obsessed with Josh Richter, to the point where she saw him buy Drakkar Noir in a drugstore one time, and when he left, she asked the salesgirl for a sample and took it home with her, and she says that, now I can smell Josh whenever I want to in the privacy of my own home, which is freak behavior. Mia swears up and down that she sees a different, more sensitive side to Josh because he said hey to her in the hall one time, and Lily says that she has an overactive imagination and a need to create drama, and that Josh's synapses were probably misfiring that day. We will absolutely be coming back to Josh. She's got this things to do list for the end of the school day, and she's got to buy cat litter, finish foil worksheet for Mr. G, stop telling Lily everything, go to Pearl Paint to get soft lead pencils, spray mount canvas stretchers for her mom. She's got a World Civ report on Iceland. She has to stop thinking about Josh Richter so much. She needs to drop off the laundry. She's got October rent. Make sure that mom deposited dad's check. She's got to be more assertive. And number 10, she has to measure her chest. Those are all of the things that she has to do. Here's where we start kind of picking up on the fact that Mia is responsible for making sure certain things in the house end up getting done. Her mom is kind of this, like, free-spirited space cadet artist type, and so she doesn't always remember to pay the bills, and she doesn't always remember to deposit the rent check, and, you know, there's certain things that she doesn't really think to do that Mia ends up being responsible for. And for me, Helen Thermopolis falls somewhere on the same scale that Bella Swan's mom does in Twilight. Like, they're both really sweet people, but their daughters end up being responsible for more than they should be. I really do not like Bella Swan's mom in Twilight, but Helen Thermopolis has plenty of redeeming qualities, and I do like her, but also, why is your 14-year-old daughter making sure that the rent's getting paid? The next day, we are introduced to the absolute threat and menace that is Lana Weinberger. Now, Lana Weinberger is pretty much just the antagonist in Mia Thermopolis' life. She's kind of everything that Mia is not, primarily popular, blonde, and mean. Mia ponders in her diary, how come nice people like Princess Diana get killed in car wrecks, but mean people like Lana never do? I don't understand what Josh Richter sees in her. I mean, yeah, she's pretty, but she's so mean. The very first thing that Lana Weinberger does on the page is call Mia a freak, but she says it freak, which is mean. Later on the same day, Mia is at Lily's house, and Lily's parents are kind of questioning her about how she feels about her mother dating Mr. Giannini. They're both psychoanalysts, and they are referred to collectively as the Doctors Moskovitz. Lily's brother Michael overhears her talking about her mom and immediately just starts laughing his head off about the whole Mr. Giannini thing. And Mia is mortified because she does not want anybody at school to find out about her mom dating the algebra teacher. So she begs Michael not to say anything to anybody. And he's basically like, what are you gonna do? Like, what do I get out of it? I can't offer to do his homework or anything. Michael is a senior, just like Josh Richter. Michael has gotten straight A's his entire life, just like Josh Richter. Michael will probably go to Yale or Harvard next year, just like Josh Richter. What could I do for someone like that? Mia also notes that even though he doesn't play sports like Josh Richter does, she has seen him shirtless before and thinks that he has a very nice chest, which is very interesting. Ultimately, Lily tells Mia that she has nothing to worry about because Michael doesn't have any friends at school, so he has nobody to tell. The next entry worth talking about is Lily Moskowitz's list of hottest guys that she and Mia put together during World Civ class. Some of the notable entries are Josh Richter, Boris Pelkowski, who is this kid who goes to that school, who is just a really talented violinist, and Lily thinks it's really hot, and Mia thinks he's a giant dork because he tucks his sweater into his pants. Pierce Brosnan, but as James Bond. Prince William of England, he still had hair, so, you know, I guess. And Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic. Mia says that it's so 1998, and she's not interested, but Lily likes Leonardo DiCaprio. Also, I'm getting closer and closer to the Leonardo DiCaprio cutoff age of 25, which is when, according to Leonardo DiCaprio, I become undateable. And on the one hand, I'm a little bit offended, and on the other hand, I'm like a little bit relieved. So marking myself safe from that is going to be so 25 of me. You know what I mean? There's another very important difference between the book Princess Diaries and the movie Princess Diaries. In the movie, Mia's dad, Philippe, is very much dead. He is dead. And I don't know if they ever get into it, but it's very tragic, and she's his only kid, and that's how she becomes the Princess of Genovia, etc., etc. In the book, he is very much still alive. And we're going to get into the minutia of that in a minute, but he calls the apartment and he's looking for Mia's mom, and it's like, I really need to talk to her. And Mia does not want to admit to her father that her mother is out with her algebra teacher, so she lies and says that she's at the studio and hangs up. And then she goes back to what she was doing, which was measuring her chest and then despairing about the fact that she is completely flat-chested. She's being very woe is me and saying that even if somehow, some way, somebody asked her to the cultural diversity dance the following month, she wouldn't be able to wear a strapless dress because there would be nothing there to hold it up. And I really feel for Mia. My heart goes out, okay? But some of us actually had it a little bit worse. In the movies, Lily hosts a public access television show called Shut Up and Listen, which is capital I iconic. But in the book, she hosts a public access television show called Lily Tells It Like It Is. On Saturday, September 27th, they are working on her latest episode, a spoof of the Blair Witch Project called the Greenwich Project, where they harass tourists who ask them where Greenwich Village is. It is pronounced Greenwich Village, if you are not familiar. In the middle of their Eichner-esque spectacular, we are introduced to another just absolutely massive menace of this book, okay? And that is the blind guy, capital B, capital G. He has this grift where he pretends to be blind, and then when some nice lady offers to help him cross the crosswalk, he feels them up and then pretends that it's an accident because he's blind. Anyway, that's the blind guy. Mia writes that it's not fair that the only person who's ever felt her up was blind. And we move on. Mia's father ends up coming to town after he's called several times. Mia says that he's some kind of foreign diplomat and doesn't live in the United States, but she really doesn't get into specifics. She just says that she spends her summers with her dad and her grandmother in a chateau in France, which is very fancy. Helen sits Mia down and tells her that he's been calling because he was recently diagnosed with cancer. Specifically, he has been diagnosed with testicular cancer, and so cannot have any more children because they had to cut one of his balls off. So Mia is now his only child ever. When Philippe comes to town, he stays at the Plaza Hotel, and then he usually takes Mia to go see Beauty and the Beast on Broadway because they both love it a lot, and Mia says that it's her favorite musical, no matter what Lily says about misogynistic undertones. It is now Tuesday, October 2nd. We're at the Plaza Hotel, okay? We're sitting down, eating lunch, 2 tables down from Ivana Trump. Like, she's literally name-dropped in the book. Philippe tells Mia that he's not just a foreign diplomat. He's actually the fucking Prince of Genovia. Now, for this entire conversation where Philippe is explaining to Mia that he's the Prince of Genovia, she is having like a hiccuping fit. She cannot get her hiccups under control, and so she has to excuse herself in the middle of the conversation and go to the fancy Plaza Hotel bathroom and try to fix that. And while she's sitting on her fancy tasseled Plaza Hotel stool, she starts putting 2 and 2 together. A lot of things are starting to make sense now, like how when I fly to France, I just walk onto the plane from the terminal, but when I get there, I'm escorted off the plane before everyone else and taken away by limo to meet my dad at Mérignac. I always thought that was because he had frequent flyer privileges. I guess it's because he's the prince. And then there's the fact that whenever Grand-Mère takes me shopping in Genovia, she always takes me either before the stores are officially open or after they are officially closed. And she calls ahead to make sure we will be let in, and no one has ever said no. In Manhattan, if my mother tried to do this, the clerks at the Gap would have fallen over from laughing so hard. And when I'm at Mérignac, I noticed that we never go out to eat anywhere. We always have our meals here, or sometimes we go to the neighboring chateau, which is owned by these nasty British people. And let me tell you how Genovia is described in the book. It is this tiny little principality that is so wealthy that none of the residents have to pay taxes. And on one side of the country, there's the beautiful snowy Alps, and then on the other side of the country is the beautiful blue Mediterranean Sea. And their main export is very fancy olive oil. And I was just like seething and frothing at the mouth as a kid with jealousy about her being the Princess of Genovia and me not being the Princess of Genovia. I was absolutely devastated that it's not a real place. But speaking of the Princess of Genovia, there is one thing that Mia Thermopolis did not realize while she was sitting on her tasseled stool of realization. Mia comes back from the bathroom to rejoin her father at lunch, and her dad's like, "Is everything okay? Like, are you all right?" And she's like, "Yeah, why wouldn't I be okay?" And he's like, "I don't know, because you're the Princess of Genovia and I just told you that." And Mia's like, "Oh my god!" And then immediately burst into tears at the table. But really, who among us would not burst into tears upon finding something like that out? I absolutely would cry at the table. Mia writes, "You never saw anyone who looks less like a princess than I do. I mean, I have really bad hair that isn't curly or straight, it's just kind of triangular, so I have to wear it really short or I look like a yield sign. And it isn't blonde or brunette, it's just in the middle, the sort of color they call mouse brown or dishwater blonde. And I have a really big mouth and no breasts and feet that look like skis." And as if that isn't bad enough, her father, who is genuinely trying to comfort her, is saying stuff like, "It's really not going to be so bad, and you're going to like living with me, and you can come back and visit your friends anytime you want, but you're going to love living with me in Genovia." And she's like, "Oh my god, not only am I now a princess, but I have to move?" And like, this is just too much for Mia, and she gets up from the table, and she runs out of the room, and she runs out of the Plaza Hotel, and she just kind of keeps running. And she doesn't want to go to Lily's because she knows that Lily hates monarchy or like any form of government that's not by the people for the people. And Mia says, "I guess I kind of agree with Lily, especially about Prince Charles. He did treat Diana like dirt. But my dad isn't like that. Yeah, he plays polo and all, but he would never dream of subjecting someone to taxation without representation." And Mia just keeps running, and eventually she ends up at the Central Park Zoo, and she just ends up being there for a while alone with her thoughts, watching the penguins, and eventually just goes home and goes to bed. Her parents try talking to her about it the next morning, and her mom's trying to comfort her and say that she'd probably really like Genovia and it would probably be really great. But of course, this also doesn't go well because Mia thinks her mom's just trying to get rid of her so she can live happily ever after with Mr. Giannini. Her father sends her to school with Lars, who is his bodyguard / chauffeur. In the book, at least so far, there is no Joe like there is in the movies, so as far as I can tell, this is the closest we get to Joe. I love Joe. Mia is incredibly embarrassed about being driven to school by Lars, and she says that the only other person who gets driven to school by a chauffeur, her name is Tina Hakim Baba, and her father is like a Saudi Arabian oil magnate, gets made fun of constantly. Like, they make fun of Tina Hakim Baba for it, and they're gonna make fun of her for it too. On top of that, she has to go pick up Lily on the way to school, and she really does not want to tell Lily about the whole princess thing because she just feels like Lily is not going to understand and not going to react well. As soon as she picks Lily up, Lily can sense that there's something wrong, and Mia blames her sort of just been crying squinty eyes on just her dad being in town and that being difficult. Again, who among us has not just blamed our dad for something we didn't want to explain? She decides to camp out at Lily's after school, and she calls her mom, and the excuse she gives is that she wants to keep Lily company because Lily's stalker just got out of Bellevue Hospital, and Lily's feeling weird about that. I really genuinely believe that you are not prepared for what I'm about to read you. Ever since Lily started her cable access TV show, this guy named Norman has been calling in, asking her to take off her shoes. According to the Doctors Moskovitz, Norman is a fetishist. His fixation is feet. In particular, Lily's feet. He sends stuff to her, CDs and stuffed animals and things like that, and writes that there will be more where that came from if Lily would just take off her shoes on air. So what Lily does is, she takes off her shoes, and then she throws a blanket over her legs and kicks her feet around under it and goes, "Look, Norman, you freak, I took my shoes off. Thanks for the CDs, sucker." This angered Norman so much that he started wandering around the village looking for Lily. Everyone knows that Lily lives in the village, since we filmed a very popular episode where Lily borrowed the pricing gun from Grand Union and stood on the corner of Bleecker and LaGuardia and told all of the European tourists wandering around that if they wore a Grand Union price sticker on their foreheads, they could get a free latte from Dean and DeLuca. Anyway, one day a few weeks ago, Norman the foot fetishist found us in the park and started chasing us around, waving $20 bills and trying to get us to take off our shoes. This was very entertaining and hardly scary at all, especially because we just ran right up to the command post on Washington Square South and Thompson Street, where the 6th Precinct has been parking their enormous trailer so they can secretly spy on drug dealers. We told the police that this really weird guy was trying to assault us, and you should have seen it. About 20 undercover guys, even a guy I thought was a homeless man, asleep on a bench, jumped on Norman and dragged him screaming off to the mental ward. I always have such a good time with Lily. Megan, I am going to need you to answer for your crimes. I don't know what's going on here. All I know is that I picked this up in the middle reader section of the bookstore. Hello. So now they're at Lily's house. Lily's parents are at a benefit for the homosexual children of survivors of the Holocaust. Again, we're just going to move past that. The girls start by debating which James Bond is the best one, and then they rope Michael in, and he's talking about Bond girls. Then they all get on the topic of who they would repopulate the Earth with if they were the last person on it. So Xena, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Harrison Ford again. They, make it clear that it's young Harrison Ford, not old Harrison Ford. Then Michael asks them to choose between Leonardo DiCaprio and Harrison Ford, and they pick Harrison Ford because Leonardo DiCaprio is so passé, which is now the second time they've taken a shot at poor Leo DiCaprio. And then Michael asks them to choose between Harrison Ford and Josh Richter, and Lily chooses Harrison Ford, and Mia chooses Josh Richter, of course. And then Michael goes on this whole tirade about how Josh Richter would probably show cowardice in the face of Armageddon, and that he only likes girls who put out anyway. like Lana Weinberger is what it says. And Lily says that she would probably put out for Josh Richter if he wore 3 condoms and bathed in antibacterial solution and used spermicide. And Mia says that she would put out for Josh Richter if they'd been dating for at least a year, if he pledged his undying love to her, and then he took her to Beauty and the Beast on Broadway and didn't make fun of it. And Michael said that if the Beauty and the Beast thing were true, then she'd probably be a virgin for a long time because no guy with any testosterone could sit through Beauty and the Beast without projectile vomiting. And Mia's thinking to herself, well, that's obviously not true because my dad loves Beauty and the Beast and he's got at least 1 testicle with testosterone in it. I swear, this book is just really out of pocket sometimes. But now here's where we start to get into some serious trouble. Lily asks Michael if he would rather be with Lana or Mia, and he chooses Mia. And Mia's like, well, he was just saying that to be polite. And then privately, Lily asks Mia who she would choose, Michael or Josh Richter. And she says Josh Richter, but she writes in her diary, maybe Michael would be the better choice because he makes me laugh and he looks good without a shirt on, and yeah, maybe that's the better idea. And she's like, I cannot tell Lily about this. Again, I say, this is very interesting. Also, I would like to make a prediction for when I get around to reading the sequels. Michael said that no guy with any testosterone could sit through Beauty and the Beast without projectile vomiting. I kind of feel like he's going to end up sitting through Beauty and the Beast without projectile vomiting. Like, I kind of just see that coming for him. I don't know why. The next day, Mia's finally ready to go home and face her parents and the whole Princess of Genovia thing, and she gets there and her father has prepared a very official document for her to sign that says, I, the undersigned, Arthur Christophe Philippe Gerard Grimaldi Rinaldo, agree that my sole offspring and heir, Amelia Mignonette Grimaldi Thermopolis Rinaldo, may finish out her high school tenure at Albert Einstein High School for Boys, made coeducational in 1975, without interruption, save for Christmas and summer breaks, which she will spend without complaint in the country of Genovia. And then it goes on and it says, I, the undersigned, Amelia Mignonette Grimaldi Thermopolis Rinaldo, agree to fulfill the duties of heir to Arthur Christophe Philippe Gerard Grimaldi Rinaldo, Prince of Genovia, and all that such role entails, including, but not exclusive to, assuming the throne upon the latter's demise, and attending functions of state at which the presence of said heir is deemed essential. So they've come to a compromise, everybody's happy. Later on, Mia messages Michael and is like, can you please get off the internet because I want to call Lily, but I can't because you're on the internet, and this is dial-up. And he gives her a hard time about choosing Josh Richter over him in the apocalypse. And Mia's like, oh my god, I cannot believe that Lily told him that I said that. Mia's feeling really lonely and she just really wants to talk to somebody. And Lily just spends their entire phone call talking about how her parents threatened to cancel. Lily tells it like it is if she shows her feet on camera. And that she's going to contact the ACLU about it. And like, that's the whole conversation. Wednesday, October 8th. Oh no, she's here. Forget everything you think you know about Mia's grandmother. You're probably picturing like Julie Andrews or like a Julie Andrews type figure, right? Like very stately and graceful and whatever. Fucking forget that, okay? Throw that out of your mind. I'm actually just going to read this right from my notes. She describes her as follows. First, she wears fancy negligee to bed every night, the kind that show everything through. Second, she has eyeliner permanently tattooed on her eyelids. She did it back in the 80s after Princess Grace of Monaco died. 3, she has a horrible 15-year-old miniature poodle named Ramel. And she also smokes constantly, even in bed, to the point where they actually dug tunnels underground at the chateau so that the rest of the family could escape if she fell asleep with a cigarette in bed and like burned the whole place down. She also hates cats and children. I love her so much. Do you know the 1977 hit Disney classic, The Rescuers? She looks exactly like Madame Medusa in The Rescuers. Like, that's who I imagine. Mia calls her grandmère instead of grandmother in the book, and I'm doing my absolute best with that. But I studied Latin American Spanish in school, the people's language, and so I'm not really good with French, and also, fuck French. I don't care, okay? I'm doing my best. Grandmère has arrived in New York, and is staying at the plaza and is requiring Mia to come to princess lessons after school every day so that Grandmère can teach Mia how to be the Princess of Genovia. Is Mia happy about this? Absolutely fucking not. So she shows up at the Plaza Hotel for her first princess lesson, and this is how she describes the place. She says, first of all, everything is pink. Pink walls, pink carpet, pink curtains, pink furniture. There are pink roses everywhere, and these portraits hanging on the wall that all feature pink-cheeked shepherdesses and stuff. And just when I thought I was going to drown in pinkness, out comes Grandmère, completely dressed in purple, from her silk turban all the way down to her mules, with the rhinestone clips on the toes. At least, I think they're rhinestones. Grandmère always wears purple. Lily says people who wear purple a lot usually have borderline personality disorders because they have delusions of grandeur. Of course, Lily doesn't know that my grandmother is a member of the aristocracy, so while Grandmère is definitely delusional, it's not because she thinks she's an aristocrat. She really is one. Grandmère, the absolute menace that she is, lays into Mia as soon as she sees her. She says, "Why are you wearing tennis shoes with a skirt? Are those tights supposed to be clean? Why can't you stand up straight? What's wrong with your hair? Have you been biting your nails again, Amelia? I thought we agreed you were going to give up that nasty habit. My God, can't you stop growing? Is your goal to be even taller than your father?" Only it sounded even worse because it was all in French. Grandmère sends Mia home and is like, tomorrow show up in pantyhose, I want to see loafers, I want you to do your hair, I want you to paint your fingernails or like whatever's left of your fingernails, I want you to wear makeup, like I want you to come back as a princess. So the next day, she packs a bag that has her mom's pantyhose in it, her mom's lipstick, she kind of does her hair, but it's not really clear what she does to it, just that it's really big, and she packs the loafers and everything so that she can change into her princess outfit after the school day is over so that nobody sees her. And this is a really great plan for avoiding the notice of anybody at the school, to wait until school is over and then change and then go, except for one thing. Mia forgot about the computer club. So after she's done applying her lipstick and putting on her outfit and whatever, she walks out of the bathroom and immediately runs into Michael Moscovitz. And Michael Moscovitz is like, "What happened to you? Like, what's going on?" Mia begs Michael not to tell Lily about what he saw with the whole makeup and the outfit and everything, and she tells him that she's going to meet her grandmother, and he absolutely does not believe her and thinks that she's going on a date. But basically, she's just like, please, please, please don't tell her, and then runs away. And it does not get better for Mia when she meets up with Grandmère, because her Grandmère immediately says that her lipstick makes her look like a poulet, which I guess is slang for prostitute, according to the book. Her pantyhose is the wrong color, her hair is fucked up, and also she then tops it all off by calling Princess Diana a twink. Grandmère tells Mia to return tomorrow, which is Saturday, no later than 10 a.m. Mia tries to get out of this because the next day she's supposed to be helping Lily film her next episode of Lily Tells It Like It Is, but Grandmère doesn't give a shit. So now I just briefly want to introduce Heyyyy. Heyyyy is the subject of the video that Lily is making for Lily Tells It Like It Is. Basically, Lily is calling for the boycott of Ho's Deli across the street from the high school. According to Lily, they're giving all of the Asian students a 5-cent discount on whatever snacks they're buying there, and she says that it's racist and not fair. My cat's here. The prince has arrived. I know that I said that I hate the French, but I named my cat Claude because I thought it was funny. Hello, Claude. Even in the very beginning, Mia does not give a shit about Heyyyy, really. She doesn't think it's a big deal. She thinks Lily's kind of making something out of nothing. Isn't really keen to participate anyway, but hasn't said any of this to Lily. But Mia knows that when she tells Lily that she has to bail on Heyyyy, that Lily is not going to take it well. And she's completely right. Lily does not take it well, and she basically calls her a pushover and said that if she really wanted to get out of her plans with her Grandmère, then she would, and she needs to stop letting people push her around. Mia gets to the plaza by 10 a.m. on the Saturday morning like she's supposed to, and as soon as she gets there, Grandmère whisks her away in the car, and they end up at a place called Chez Paolo. And she's not really sure what Chez Paolo is at first. She thinks she's just gonna sit there while her grandmother gets plastic surgery done or something. And then she realizes that it is actually a makeover intervention. Paolo of Chez Paolo comes out and is like, hey, listen, you know, I'm an incredibly busy person, but your grand-mère said this was an emergency, and so I'm here to get things done. And Mia is so embarrassed because she's like, oh my god, I'm a fashion emergency. And this whole thing just makes me think of the TLC show What Not to Wear, like the surprise makeover wardrobe aspect of it too. And I kind of want to know what kind of psychological damage that causes, like in real life. Like, well, how does it feel to be nominated and go on that show? If this is any indication, it feels fucking embarrassing. Paolo cuts off most of Mia's hair and dyes it blonde, and she compares it to kind of the Rosemary's Baby type look. And then there's a full set of acrylics that happens because she chews her nails, and that covers it up. I think he does some stuff with makeup as well. And then after the makeover, Grandmère brings her to Bergdorf for new loafers, new shoes, and a new wardrobe as well, which sounds like a dream come true to me, but Mia is so pissed about it. She gets home at the end of the day, she immediately confronts her father and tells him that, you know, she feels like they're trying to turn her into somebody that she's not, and that she's really embarrassed about the whole makeover, and that she feels like Vicky from Showboat, and she's just really upset about it. Philippe is basically like, okay, treat it like a job, and then asks her how much it will cost to have her cooperate in being turned into a princess by Grandmère. And he agrees to pay $100 a day to Greenpeace so that Mia will cooperate. And Mia's thrilled about this because she really just wants to go work for Greenpeace, and she thinks that, you know, if she donates all of this money in her name, then they will have to hire her. So her cooperation has been purchased. After that whole showdown, Mia takes off her new clothes and her makeup and everything because she's supposed to be going over to Lily's house to at least help her edit the Heyyyy video. And as soon as she gets over there, despite the fact that she has taken her makeup off, she's taken her hair products off, she's taken her new clothes off, like she's trying to downplay the makeover as much as possible, he has joined me once again. You have something to say? Goodbye. Sorry for the interruption. She shows up at Lily's house, she walks through the door, and as soon as Lily sees her new appearance, she says, oh my god, what happened to you? Mia has done her absolute best to minimize everything. She took the stuff out of her hair, she took her makeup off, she put her old clothes back on. She wanted to look as normal as possible. So after doing all of this work to minimize her new appearance, even though she says that she kind of thought she looked good, like she actually does kind of feel good about the way she looks, you know, Lily's giving her such a hard time about it. She immediately compares Mia's new hair color to Lana Weinberger's, which is such an asshole thing to do. And then, you know, she goes, what's on your fingers? Are those fake fingernails? Lana has those too. She stared at me all bug-eyed. Oh my god, Mia, you're turning into Lana Weinberger. Mia's pretty peeved at this point, but she's just standing there. She's trying to, like, be calm, cool, and collected about it, and this is just making Lily more mad, so she goes, what are you? Completely passive? You're mute or something? Unable to say the word no? You know, Mia, we really need to work on your assertiveness. You seem to have real issues with your grandmother. I mean, you certainly don't have any trouble saying no to me. I could have really used your help today with the hoe segment, and you totally let me down, but you've got no problem letting your grandmother cut off all your hair and dye it yellow. And Mia has finally had enough. She says, Lily, shut up, which she has never before said in her life. And Lily is completely shocked. What did you just say to me? And Mia finally just lets it all out. I'm tired of you putting me down all the time. All day long, my mom and dad and grandmother and teachers are telling me what to do. I don't need my friends getting on my case too. And Lily's like, oh my god. And Michael walks into the room and is like, oh my god. And she says, you know what? I don't have a problem. You're the one with the problem. You seem to have a big problem with me. Well, you know what? I'm going to solve your problem for you. I'm leaving. I never wanted to help you with your stupid Hogate story anyway. The hoes are nice people. They haven't done anything wrong. I don't see why you have to pick on them. And I said this as I opened the door, my hair is not yellow. And then she slams the door. That whole scene is potentially my favorite part of this book. The next morning, Mia wakes up and she goes out to her kitchen and sees Mr. Giannini in his boxers, which is just like too much for her. And her mom's like, oh my god, you're here. I thought you were supposed to be at Lily's. And she's like, I'm not at Lily's. And so her mom like rushes to reassure her that nothing weird happened and he slept on the futon and it's not what it looks like. And it's very awkward. Frank tries to lessen the awkwardness as much as possible with Mia by trying to strike up a conversation about what they think the other teachers at the school wear as pajamas, and it does make her laugh and sort of diffuses the tension a little bit. And I really like Frank Giannini a lot. I think he's a really nice guy. Lily does not call to make up with Mia, so Mia puts together a pros and cons list for making up with Lily first. The reasons that she should make up with Lily: 1, we've been best friends since kindergarten. 2, one of us has to be the bigger person and make the first move. 3, she makes me laugh. 4, who else can I eat lunch with? 5, I miss her. Reasons I should not make up with Lily: 1, she's always telling me what to do. 2, she thinks she knows everything. 3, Lily is the one who started it, so she should be the one to apologize. 4, I will never achieve self-actualization if I always back down from my convictions. And 5, what if I apologize and she still won't talk to me? Later on that day, Michael ends up messaging Mia online, and they talk a little bit, and he ultimately offers to tutor her in algebra, which is suspiciously nice. Very kind and thoughtful thing to do. Anyway, when Mia gets back to school on Monday, she and Lily are still not talking to each other. Boris, the violinist who tucks his sweaters into his pants, shoves the petition to boycott Ho's Deli in Mia's face, and Mia's like, no, I'm not signing that. Like, I'm not going to participate in this. But by the time lunch comes around, Mia has nowhere to sit. Mia says, there's the table where I sit with Lily, and then the jock table, and the cheerleader table, and the rich kid table, and the hip-hop table, and the druggie table, the drama freak table, the National Honor Society table, the foreign exchange students table, and the table where Tina Hakeem Baba sits every day with her bodyguard. Tag yourself with which table you would be sitting at. I unfortunately know where I would be sitting, and it is the drama freak table. She ends up asking Tina Hakeem Baba if she can sit with her at her table, and Tina is absolutely over the moon because no one ever sits with her. So it's just her and her bodyguard, and she's eating her salad and reading a romance novel by herself. They talk about school and the cultural diversity dance and stuff like that, and Tina even ends up buying Mia an ice cream cone, and Mia is so touched by that gesture. I'm honestly really sad that Tina's not in the movie because she's such a lovely character and a really nice addition to the book, and I would love to see her in the movie. My cat is throwing up. I can hear it. Tina and Mia are eating their ice cream cones together. They're enjoying each other's company, and Lana Weinberger comes over and calls Mia's hair pus yellow, which is disgusting and mean, and then it starts being awful to Tina Hakeem Baba and saying that she's trying to buy Mia's friendship with her daddy's money. If you watched the movie, you probably know where this is going. I was sitting there, looking at the tears welling up in Tina Hakeem Baba's eyes, and the next thing I knew, I'd taken my Nutty Royale and thrust it with all my might at the front of Lana's sweater. Lana looked down at the vanilla ice cream, hard chocolate shell, and peanuts that were sticking to her chest. Josh Richter and the other jocks stopped talking and looked at Lana's chest too. The noise level at the cafeteria plummeted to the quietest I've ever heard it. Everyone was looking at the ice cream cone sticking to Lana's chest. It was so quiet I could hear Boris breathing through the wires of his bionator. Then Lana started to scream. She gets sent to the principal's office for the first time in her whole life. Principal Gupta is like, hey, listen, just apologize for it. It's no big deal. And she's like, I am not apologizing for sticking up for myself and Tina Hakeem Baba. And then she gets detention, which is just so satisfying, really. She spends her gifted and talented class practicing algebra with Michael, but she's having a really hard time focusing because she can feel Lily like breathing down her neck and not talking to her in the classroom. And then also Michael is kind of a cute boy who's paying attention to her, and their knees accidentally touched at one point and she just like cannot focus. Things are just not going well for Lily in general. The whole Ho's Deli boycott, Hogate thing is not going well because, you know, the popular kids refuse to go somewhere else to buy cigarettes. It's the only deli that's anywhere close to the school. And now all of the Asian kids who go to the school have found out they get a discount, so they're all going there. So ultimately, kind of a loss for her. Michael asks Mia if she's grounded and is about to ask her if she wants to do something with him on Saturday, but the bell rings and she rushes out of the room because she's like certain that he's going to ask her to practice the algebra problems on Saturday, and she just really does not want to do math on a Saturday. And so she runs out of the room. And he doesn't get to finish whatever it was that he was going to say. Mia gets to school on Wednesday, October 5th, and everybody is acting super, super weird. Does her hair look weird? Is it something to do with the Lana Weinberger ice cream incident? Like, why is everybody looking at her? I think you and I both know where this is going. But then she runs into Josh in the hallway, and Josh says, how you doing? And then, see you later. And Mia is like, what the fuck is going on? And says that it took her like several minutes to stop hyperventilating. Later that day, Mia finds out why everybody's looking at her fucking weird. It's because her face is on the cover of the New York Post. Mia thinks she's totally dead. She thinks that everybody is going to make fun of her and give her a hard time for being the Princess of Genovia, when obviously that doesn't happen. Lana Weinberger even comes over and says, hey Mia, like, come sit at our table. And Mia's like, oh my god, what a lousy hypocrite. She only wants to be friends with me because she just found out that I'm the Princess of Genovia. She basically tells Lana to fuck off and that she already has someone to sit with and she's going to sit with Tina. And Tina has been kind of quiet the whole lunch period. She hasn't really mentioned the princess thing. She's just kind of, being a little bit more reserved. And Mia says, Tina, I understand if you don't want to sit with me anymore, like, I get it. And then Tina's eyes well up with tears again, and she thinks that Mia doesn't like her anymore, and Mia's like, oh my god, no, like, I thought maybe you wouldn't want to sit with me because I'm getting all this attention right now, like, everybody's looking at us. And Tina's like, look, everyone already stares at me because I've got a bodyguard, always. Everyone's already staring at me, but I feel bad for you because now this is a new thing for you. I feel bad for you because you're stuck with sitting with me, and, I don't want you to feel like you have to be nice to me just because nobody else is. And Mia has this moment of realization, and she says, I got really mad then, not at Tina, but at everybody else at Albert Einstein. I mean, Tina Hakeem Baba is really, really nice, and no one knows it because no one even talks to her, because she isn't very thin, and she's kind of quiet, and she's stuck with a stupid bodyguard. While people are worrying about things like the fact that a deli is overcharging people by 5 cents, there are human beings walking around our school in abject misery because no one will even say good morning to them or how's their weekend. And then I felt guilty because a week ago I had been one of those people. I had always thought Tina Hakeem Baba was a freak. The whole reason I hadn't want anyone to figure out that I was a princess was that I was afraid they'd treat me the way they treat Tina Hakeem Baba. And now that I know Tina, I know just how wrong I had been to think badly of her. I cannot say this enough. I love Tina Hakeem Baba. I think she's so nice, and her friendship with Mia developing in this book and presumably the sequels is really special. Now, keep in mind, for this entire cafeteria exchange, Lily has just been staring daggers into Mia's general direction without saying anything. Like, she hasn't said anything to her. She's just staring at her, and it's a little bit weird, but at the same time, ultimately, Lily is a 14-year-old girl too, and I kind of feel bad for her. Imagine that you have a fight with your best friend, and then your best friend starts sitting at lunch with somebody else, and then one day they're on the cover of the New York Post and they're the Princess of Genovia, and they didn't tell you. Like, it probably feels really bad. Alright, well, I'm back. It's been a couple weeks since I last recorded. I cut off most of my hair, and I'm in the middle of moving right now, so my life is complete and utter chaos. Somehow I managed to accidentally pack up my tiara, so that was $20 for nothing. Anyway, so my life's a disaster, but we're gonna get back into it. Picking up where we left off, we're about to have a showdown in the Gifted and Talented class. I'm actually gonna read a lot of it to you because it's just so good, and I don't want you to miss any of it. So it starts, meanwhile, this is how my tutoring session with Lily's brother went. Hi, Michael. I did all of those problems that you gave me, but I still don't see why you couldn't just look at the train schedule to figure out what time a train traveling at 67 miles per hour would arrive in Fargo, North Dakota if it leaves Salt Lake City at 7 a.m. Michael. So, Princess of Genovia, huh? Were you ever gonna share that little piece of info with the group, or were we all supposed to guess? Me. I was kind of hoping no one would ever find out. Back to Michael. Well, that's obvious. I don't see why, though. It's not like it's a bad thing. Mia. Are you kidding me? Of course it's bad. Did you read the article in today's Post, Thermopolis? No way. I'm not going to read that trash. I don't know who this Carol Fernandez thinks she is, but then Lily got in the act. It was like she couldn't stand not to get involved. So, you're not aware that the Crown Prince of Genovia, namely your father, has a total personal worth which, including real estate property and the palace's art collection, is estimated at over $300 million? I wonder how much of that fortune was amassed by taking advantage of the sweat of the common laborer. Michael goes, considering that the people of Genovia have traditionally never paid income or property taxes, I would say none of it. What is with you anyway, Lil? Lily goes, well, if you want to tolerate the excesses of the monarchy, you can be my guest, Michael, but I happen to think that it's disgusting with the world economy in the state that it's in today for anyone to have a total net worth of $300 million, especially someone who never did a day's work for it. Michael says, pardon me, Lily, but it's my understanding that Mia's father works extremely hard for his country. His father's historic pledge after Mussolini's forces invaded in 1939 to exercise the rights of sovereignty in accordance with the political and economic interests of the neighboring France in exchange for military and naval protection in the event of war might have tied the hands of a lesser politician. But Mia's father has managed to work around that agreement. His efforts have resulted in a nation with the highest literacy rate in Europe, some of the best educational attainment rates, and the lowest infant mortality, inflation, and unemployment rates in the Western Hemisphere. This place sounds fucking awesome. Wow. Why doesn't Grand Mère teach me stuff like that at our princess lessons? I mean, this is information I could actually use. I need to know how to defend myself from virulent anti-royalists like my ex-best friend Lily. Lily goes to Michael, shut up, and then to Mia says, I see they already have you spouting up their populist propaganda like a good little girl. Mia goes, me? Michael's the one who, aw, Lily, you're just jealous, is what Michael says. Lily says, I am not. Michael goes, yes, you are. You're jealous because she got her hair cut without consulting you. You're jealous because you stopped talking to her and she went out and got herself a new friend. And you're jealous because all this time Mia's had this secret and she didn't tell you. Lily goes, Michael, shut up.
You're talking shit about me. I hear you talking about Michael.
Let it be known that I'm talking shit about Michael. Lily, who is now really mad, goes, gosh, Michael, you sure are quick to come to Mia's defense all of a sudden. I wonder if it maybe ever occurred to you that your argument, while ostensibly based on logic, might have less intellectual than libidinous roots. I don't know if I said that right, but it looks right. Michael, who is now turning red for some reason, goes, well, what about your persecution of the hoes? Is that rooted in intellectual reasoning, or is it more of an example of vanity run amok? Lily says, that's a circular argument. Michael says, it isn't, it's empirical. Wow, Michael and Lily are so smart. Grand Mère's right. I need to improve my vocabulary. I also need to improve my vocabulary because I've never seen libidinous in my life. Michael turns to Mia and goes, so this guy, he pointed at Lars, has to follow you around everywhere from now on? Mia goes, yes. Michael says, really? Everywhere? Mia goes, everywhere except the ladies' room. Then he waits outside. Michael goes, what if you were to go on a date? Like, to the cultural diversity dance this weekend? That's very interesting that he should ask that. Mia goes, that hasn't exactly been an issue, considering that no one's asked me. Oh my god, Mia. And then they get interrupted by Mrs. Hill, who is supposed to be sort of teaching the gifted and talented class, but ultimately just watches TV in the teacher's lounge. So we don't get to hear the end of that conversation. But Mia does leave a note at the bottom of the entry, and it says, note to self, look up the words empirical and libidinous. Libidinous. The school is swarming with reporters this entire day trying to get to Mia, and it's this huge mess. So Frank and Lars are trying to help her get through the mob to the limo at the end of the day. Her father is in the limo trying to give her a pep talk, and she tries to tell him that she quits being a princess, but he says that it's too late and she can't quit, and Mia cries all the way home. Who among us wouldn't cry in a limo given the first opportunity? Her mom thinks that Grand Mère is the one who tipped off the reporters about Mia being a princess, but Her father thinks that it was Mr. Giannini who tipped them off. So they get into a whole huge argument about it, and Mia just goes to her room and she just puts her headphones on and starts listening to Britney Spears and like ignores them. And while she's in there, she says, "My favorite CD right now is the latest Britney Spears," which I know is really dorky, and I could never tell Lily, but secretly I sort of want to be Britney Spears. Once I had a dream that I was Britney, and I was performing in the auditorium at Albert Einstein, and I had this little pink mini dress on, and Josh Richter complimented me on it right before I went on stage. Isn't that embarrassing to admit? The funny thing is, while I know I could never tell Lily about that dream without her going all Freudian on me and telling me how the pink dress is a phallic symbol and being Britney signifies my low self-esteem or something, I know that I could tell Tina Hakeem Baba and she would totally get into it and just want to know whether or not Josh was wearing leather pants. I am team Tina Hakeem Baba for life. That is so cute. So we're now on Thursday, October 16, and I almost feel bad for taking so long to summarize this, only I actually don't. You're welcome. You should not have to read this book after I get through all of this. Lana and Josh come to join Tina and Mia at their lunch table, and Tina and Mia are like fucking shocked. They invite Mia to this party the night of the diversity dance where they're going to be drinking and, you know, kind of what have you, and Mia's like, "My mom is not going to let me go to a party like that," and sort of turns them down. And then Lana's just like, "Okay, we'll just lie about it. You don't need to tell her the truth." And Mia's like, "No, like, I don't lie to my mom. You know, I want to be honest with her." Hey, video editing Grace here. For whatever reason, the next few minutes, there's no video anymore. It doesn't exist, only the audio. So, sorry, don't know how I did that. Later on, Josh meets Mia at her locker and asks if she's going to the dance with anyone. And Mia writes, "For the first time in like a month, I don't care that I'm flunking algebra. I don't care that my mom is dating one of my teachers. I don't care that I'm the heir to the throne of Genovia. I don't even care that my best friend and I aren't speaking. I think Josh Richter might like me." Grandmère takes Mia out to dinner so that she can sort of practice dealing with the press, and Mia accuses her of being the one to tip off the press about her in the first place. Grandmère ends up coming clean about it and saying, well, it was just going to happen anyway, like, why not now? And Mia gets really, really mad and confronts her about it. She calls and tells her dad that it was Grandmère. Remember, he had been pinning it on Mr. Giannini the whole time, and he says, I know, really miserably. The man has mommy issues as fuck. All right, next day in English class, we're about to really start cooking with gas, so get ready. I'm going to rapid fire this because so much happens. It's Friday, which is coincidentally the day before the cultural diversity dance, so I want you to keep that in mind. All right, first thing that happens, Josh and Lana have broken up, okay? Josh dumped her, and Mia legitimately feels bad for Lana because she spends the entire class period just erasing Mrs. Josh Richter from all over her book covers and, like, sobbing, which is it's really fucking sad. Second thing that happens, Josh comes to Mia at her locker and asks her to the dance. As you can imagine, Mia flips the fuck out. She is like completely freaked out, and in the back of her mind she's thinking, well, he's only asking you out because you're a princess, but then she decides that she ultimately doesn't fucking care and says yes, obviously. Number 3, Lily finally talks to Mia, but only to criticize her for going to the dance with Josh. Josh and his friends sit with Tina and Mia at the lunch table, and Lana is sitting alone with a couple of her friends, and it occurs to Mia that Josh is dissing Lana by going to the dance with her instead, but she still doesn't feel bad enough not to go. 4, Mia stays over at Tina's penthouse apartment and is just completely mind blown with how fancy it is and how nice Tina's family is. They're funny, they're really nice. Tina's a lot more bubbly and outgoing at home than she is at school, and they just have such a fun time together. We stayed up really late reading Tina's teenage love novels. I swear there isn't a single one where the boy broke up with the snotty girl and started going out with the heroine right away. Usually he waited a tactful amount of time, like a summer, or at least a weekend, before asking her out. The only ones with the guy who started going out with the heroine right away turned out to be the ones where the guy was just using the girl to get revenge or something. Mia gets home. It is now Saturday morning, and she tells her mom and Mr. Giannini that she is going to the dance with Josh. Mr. Giannini not thrilled about it because he really does not like Josh, and Helen and Philippe try to tell her that she can't go because Josh is a senior and too old for her, but then Grandmère shows up at the loft and intervenes, so Mia is able to go to the dance with Josh. Saturday, 7 p.m. Mia is in her new Chanel dress, her new shoes, new nails, touched up hair, waxed legs and underarms, and Josh is absolutely nowhere to be found. Josh is so late at this point that everyone is pretty positive that he stood her up, and they're all kind of, being a little awkward about it, but he does eventually turn up. So she goes to dinner with Josh and all of his little friends at the Tavern on the Green in Central Park, which I looked up, and it is fancy and expensive, of course. And dinner is not that great. They literally do not talk the entire ride to the restaurant. And Mia doesn't really get this at all. She's like, well, Michael and I talk all the time with no problems, but Josh is being like a dead fish. She also recognizes that she's occupying Lana's place, basically, in this group of people. She's sort of sitting at the table in the place that Lana would be, and feels really bad about it. And then Josh orders for everyone at the table and gets her filet mignon, which I looked up on their menu, costs about $70-ish today. So it probably would have cost like $39 in 2000, but that's kind of besides the point, because Mia is a fucking vegetarian, and she says that she will not give in, not even for Josh Richter. Plus he's getting super drunk at the table and keeps trying to put his hand on her leg, and Mia kind of wishes that she was at dinner with Lily instead. Why? I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening to me. Why me? Why is it always me? Why is it always me things happen to? How could he do this to me? How? I could rip his stupid face off. I really could. I mean, who does he think he is? Do you know what he did? Do you know what he did? Well, let me tell you what he did. Josh is hammered, okay? They show up at the school. The next thing that I knew, Josh had his arm around me again, dragged me to him, and smashed his mouth against mine. I swear, that's exactly what it felt like. He just smashed his mouth up against mine, and all these flashes started going off. But believe me, it wasn't like in those books that Tina is always reading, where the boy kisses the girl and she sees fireworks and stuff in her eyelids. I really was seeing lights go off, but they weren't fireworks. They were flashes from cameras. Everyone was taking a picture of Princess Mia getting her first kiss. I am not even kidding. It wasn't bad enough that it was my first kiss. It was my first kiss, and teen people was photographing it. And another thing about those books that Tina reads, in those books, when the girl gets her first kiss, she gets this warm, gushy feeling inside. She feels like the guy is drawing her soul up from deep within her. I didn't get that feeling. I didn't get that feeling at all. All I got was embarrassed. Why did you do that? Mia says. And Josh goes, do what? And she goes, kiss me like that, in front of everybody. I don't know, he said. Didn't you hear them? They were yelling at me to kiss you, so I did. Why? Because I know you didn't kiss me because you like me. You just kissed me because I'm the Princess of Genovia. That's crazy, he said. I like you. I like you a lot. I said, you can't like me a lot. You don't even know me. That's why I thought you asked me out, so you could get to know me better. But you haven't tried to get to know me at all. You just wanted to get your picture on Extra. He laughed at that, but I noticed he didn't look me in the eye when he said, of course I know you. No, you don't, because if you did, you wouldn't have ordered me a steak for dinner. I heard a murmur go around through all of my friends. I guess they recognized the seriousness of Josh's mistake, even if he didn't. So I ordered the girl a steak, he said, with his arms open in a so sue me sort of way. That's a crime? It was filet mignon, for God's sake. Lily said in her meanest voice, she's a vegetarian, you sociopath. The information didn't seem to bother Josh very much. He just shrugged and went, oops, my bad. Then he turned to me and said, ready to slide? But I had no intention of sliding with Josh. I had no intention of doing anything with Josh ever again. I couldn't believe, after what I had just said to him, he thought I'd still want to. The guy really was a sociopath. How could I have ever thought he'd seen into my soul? Disgusted, I did the only thing a girl can be expected to do under these circumstances. I turned my back on him and I walked out. Mia's in the bathroom, feeling really disappointed about all of this Josh stuff. And then Lily and Tina both show up in the bathroom. And Lily actually genuinely apologizes for all of her behavior. And they get Mia to come back out and join them at the dance. She feels really awkward about being the only one without a date. But then, oh, that's okay. Michael's here. He's been hanging around by himself like a dope all night. Michael Moskowitz came to a school event? I can't believe it. He never goes anywhere except to, like, lectures in quantum physics and stuff. I have got to see this for myself. I'm going out there right now. More later. Okay, so it's the next day now. We are on our very last 2 entries. So the night before, she and Lily make up, obviously. Lily and Tina become friends. Boris turns out to not be so bad. Mia doesn't hate him anymore. I don't even know if you remember Boris. He was the violinist guy. Yeah, he's still there. Mr. Giannini changes her midterm algebra grade from an F to a D, so she's thrilled about that. Mia and Michael slow dance together. Afghanistan gets bombed, so the picture of her and Josh Richter kissing is not in any of the papers. They just covered the bombing instead. She writes all about how fun the dance was and how she and Michael never ran out of things to talk about, and that Tina is going to be using her allowance money to produce Lily Tells It Like It Is, and that Lily is getting the very first exclusive interview with Mia as the Princess of Genovia. Mia is just so happy and grateful and excited, and you kind of can't help but feel giddy and excited too. And finally, Grand Mère shows up at the loft again, and as she's leaving, she helps a certain blind gentleman cross a certain crosswalk and does not heed Mia's warning about not doing that. The next thing I knew, Grand Mère was yelling her head off, and both her driver and our neighbor Ronnie came running out to help her. But Grand Mère doesn't need any help. She whacked the blind guy across the face with her purse so hard that his sunglasses went flying off. After that, there was no doubt about it. The blind man can see. And let me tell you something. I don't think he'll be taking any more trips down our street for a while. And that is the end of the book. If you're still here after all that, I am shocked and appalled, but I also really appreciate it. There's just so much to talk about that I didn't feel like I could leave any of that out. I would like to segue into talking about love. One thing about me is I hate the friends to lovers romantic trope like 95% of the time. And I mean that with every fiber of my being. I was always Team Edward, although I'm kind of Team Jacob in the movies now, which we can talk about at some other date. I'm Team Peta, like 100,000%. I'm basically Team anybody who is not the childhood best friend. Here's how I feel like it's usually set up, right? A guy and a girl are childhood best friends. The guy has unrequited feelings for this girl. She may or may not know about them, but he's like too chicken shit to do anything about it. And then another guy comes into the picture and we have a love triangle. The guy best friend character is extremely woe is me about it the whole time. And then we have to spend like 4,000 pages reading about how guilty our protagonist feels the whole time. And I just can't stand it. When it happens in fiction, it's a slog. When it happens in real life, it is also a slog, and I just hate it so much. Ew, disgusting. Now that I've gotten all of that off my chest, I want you to take everything that I said and throw it away, because I really like Michael Moskowitz. Before I go any further, I would like to acknowledge the age difference in the books. Mia is a freshman in high school. Michael is a senior in high school. I know they end up getting together in the sequels at some point. Not really sure when that is. In this book, 14-ish, 18-ish, kind of a big age difference. I wish that either Mia was 16 or Michael was 16, I guess just to bridge the gap a little bit. If you're 14 and you're watching this video somehow, don't do that. It's not really a good idea. That aside though, I do really like Michael and I love their interactions in this book. Michael, the standoffish indie boy, shows Mia a level of thoughtfulness that makes him just really easy to root for. And you can kind of see why, they would like each other. I like that Mia compares Michael and Josh a lot throughout the book and ultimately realizes that, Josh isn't interested in her as a person and doesn't really know anything about her. Meanwhile, Michael knows Mia really well and goes out of his way to tutor her in algebra, and he shows up at this dance that he normally would never be caught dead at just to hang out with Mia. And he was trying to ask her to go to the dance with him previously before Josh Richter ultimately asked first. He does say some things that ultimately date this book in 2000 and not 2023. Something about, men with testosterone not being able to get through Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. Whatever. Overall, we like Mike on this channel. We like the slow burn romance. In this case, it is so slow that it's like embers at this point. I would argue that Michael does not fall into the friends to lovers category. I think that's just me being a little pedantic because I don't like the trope overall, but I really like Michael. I'm not sure that I'm going to count best friends older brothers. We're going to move on to Josh, though. 2 words that I would use to describe Josh are very blonde and very crusty. I know that I said despite the age difference between Michael and Mia, I'm still willing to root for Michael because I really like him. I am absolutely ready to hypocritically condemn Josh for it, though. Josh Richter is a fucking creep. Let's get into it. Mia has an obsessive crush on Josh Richter from the very beginning of the book. It is this obsessive 14-year-old, like, weirdo level crush that is not based in reality. When Josh finds out that she's a princess, he dumps Lana, starts pursuing Mia, ultimately takes advantage of her for attention, doesn't really give a shit about her, okay? Criminal. But that is not Josh's first crime. For most of the book, he's dating Lana Weinberger. Lana Weinberger went to middle school with Lily and Mia, which makes her a freshman. So she's a freshman in high school. Josh Richter, as we know, senior in high school. Now, I said that I'd be willing to give Michael a pass because he and Mia don't get together in this book, nothing happens, but Josh does not have the same scruples. According to the wiki, Josh and Lana end up having sex sometime in her freshman year. I think it's mentioned when they're talking about how Josh only likes girls who put out, like Lana Weinberger. We talked about that previously. Mia ends up feeling really bad for Lana by the end of the book, and I do too. Like, what the fuck? Also, Michael actually respects Mia as a person, and Josh just wants to take advantage of her so he can get a pic of them kissing in the newspaper. So again, he should be paying for his crimes. We are now going to be adding these 2 gentlemen to something called the love interest suckometer. I have created this tier list so that we can rank all of the love interests from these various books. I spent about $40 printing this out at this size, so you better like it and think it's funny. So the tiers are as follows. Up top, we have Love of My Life. I've called my mom about them. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it's the tip top of the pile, okay? Peeta Mellark would go there. It's basically any character that I would have written about in my diary or made some kind of weird fan scrapbook about. I do not have a weird fan scrapbook for Peeta Mellark, but I do have like a folder on TikTok that's full of like 80 Peeta Mellark fan cams. So I would count that as a weird scrapbook, maybe. Next on the list, we've got Me Giggling. I probably would not have broken up with my high school boyfriend for them if they existed in real life, but I would have turned beet red if they walked into the room. Next we have, if they asked me on a date, I might say yes. This is reserved for characters who are fine enough, you know, mediocre, normal people who aren't objectionable, but maybe aren't super memorable or interesting either. After that, we have I wouldn't give them the time of day. Totally not memorable or interesting or like cool in any way. Maybe just annoying. Didn't interest me as a silly teen girl. Don't interest me now. Kinda crusty ew is reserved for characters who suck, but they haven't committed any crimes per se. Maybe minor ones that make you go, maybe they could be redeemed as characters, but probably not. Finally, we have should be locked up for good. This is for love interests who have committed some kind of heinous crime or done something that's like so crusty that it goes beyond ew and leans more into like, you should get a restraining order or call the cops. I never want to see or hear about these characters again. They are never escaping from jail. Gale Hawthorne from The Hunger Games goes down here. Literal war crimes he committed, and he should be locked up for good. This is for irredeemable losers only. I would say that Michael Moskovitz probably belongs in the Got Me Giggling category, so we're gonna put him up there. Here he is playing the guitar. In high school, I probably would have started stuttering trying to talk to him, or like, better yet, never talked to him in my entire life. I feel like he's the kind of guy that you and your friends would have like some kind of fruit-based code name for, so you'd call him Pineapple. He's thoughtful, he plays instruments, and he's pretty funny, and he was played by Robert Schwartzman in the movie, so he belongs up there. For Josh, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but I want to put him between ill, crusty, and lock him up. I don't think his crimes deserve life in prison, but he's absolutely a loser and a douchebag. The age difference between him and Mia and Lana is a little, but I guess I could make the argument that he's not a 1,000 years older than them, unlike some other books that we're going to be looking at. So I guess I'll give him like a point for that. But he does trick me into kissing him for attention. Plus, he's blonde, and you can't really trust a blonde love interest in books or in real life. He's just like a normal high school weirdie, and so he's gonna go in the purgatory zone. You're welcome to disagree with me about my rankings in the YouTube comments if you're tuning in through YouTube. I would actually genuinely love to know what you think. I want to take some time to talk about Goodreads reviews. When I finish books, I like to go on Goodreads and scroll through the 1-star reviews and find out what the haters have to say about them. I have some favorites that I like to read sometimes for a laugh, but I recognize that sometimes 1-star reviews are well earned, or they at least offer an interesting perspective that I might not have considered. I didn't find a review that particularly stood out to me as something worth sharing. But I did see the same critiques kind of over and over again, mostly that the movie is better and that some of the content is not appropriate and didn't age well. A lot of these reviewers took issue with the blind guy or the whole thing about Iraq bombing Afghanistan. And like, okay, I get it. There's also a lot of hand-wringing in these reviews about how the characters are foolish and childish and how they don't set a good example for kids, and I really don't agree with this assessment. I think it's a little bit infantilizing to assume that preteens and teenagers can't tell good behavior from bad behavior or fact from fiction. And I know that these books by no means encompass the universal experience of every teen girl everywhere, but in my own personal experience, I found these books to be really comforting as a child because they really mirrored a lot of the same shit that me and my friends were going through at the same age. Anecdotally, we faced way more catcalling, rude gestures, and just like all around inappropriate behavior from grown men when my friends and I were between the ages of 13 and 17 than any of us do now. So I don't know, I found the inclusion of the blind guy and the stalker to be kind of amusing, and if not amusing, then at least relatable, because there is some kind of weird character in the background when you're a teenage girl. The blind guy or the stalker, just some weird dude. Like, that's a pretty universal experience, and I found it to be relatable at the time, and I find it to be relatable now. I don't think that Meg Cabot is mocking abuse or abuse victims. I saw a lot of Goodreads comments that sort of accused her of that, and I just don't think that that's a fair interpretation. I interpreted the inclusion of stuff like that to be kind of an appeal to or a wink and a nod to a group of vulnerable people who have to experience that no matter what they do. So having it as kind of a joke in these books, I could see the appeal. I would love for other people to weigh in on this as well. I have been thinking a lot about it. Beyond that, measuring your chest, being obsessed with some weirdo who said hello to you one time, trying makeup for the first time, and you think you've totally nailed it, but then your grandmother says that your lipstick is too dark, it's alarmingly so, perhaps even, and then you don't agree, but it turns out, looking back on it, your lipstick was alarmingly dark, and you kind of looked like a clown. These are common experiences, and, if you were to read my diary from when I was 14, it is so much worse than this. It's a window into this dark, bizarre, hormonal place that no one should ever have to relive. Full of drama that, looking back on it, is totally inconsequential, but at the time was just like earth-shattering. I found an example in the 8th grade. I got asked out by this boy, and I originally said yes to the date, which I was kind of on the fence about anyway, but then I reneged on the date when I noticed that he didn't use your and your correctly, and it kind of like icked me out. So sorry, dude, if you're here. I was right, but did I have to write about it that much? If I get 1 million subscribers, I will read more excerpts from my diary. Or 1 million subscribers will stop me from reading more excerpts from my diary. You guys can decide that for yourselves. I could see a parent not wanting their kid to read this book, which is totally their prerogative. This falls into the category of foundational literature, which is literature for the slightly younger audience that is meant to instill values or just like teach a moral lesson. And I could see instilling values in young people to be kind of a tricky terrain, but I just don't feel like every story has to be a ham-fisted parable, and that there are actually plenty of great lessons to be learned just in this book alone. Mia has her obsessive crush on Josh Richter, but realizes that they really don't have much in common and that he's using her. Mia feels bad for her mortal enemy, Lana Weinberger, and how badly Josh has treated her. She makes a new friend in Tina Hakeem Baba, who she previously wanted nothing to do with, and then realized how wrong she was for judging her and how bad she feels that everybody else gives her a hard time over things she really can't control. She realizes that she's been limiting herself in her friendships. She recognizes that Lily has been treating her poorly, and then she's able to communicate with her to resolve that. Is Blind Guy a little jarring 23 years later? Maybe. Have we come pretty far culturally since then? Again, maybe. Kind of. Maybe if this book was written in 2023, some of the more off-color things in it wouldn't be there. But they are, because it wasn't written in 2023. And I think a large part of the charm in this book, both then and now, are kind of the off-color jokes and the cultural references. If you don't want your kid to read this book, again, that is up to you. But I don't think that it's any worse than anything else a preteen or a teenager is going to watch or read. And I think that there's a lot to gain from reading it. If you're an adult, you can do whatever you want. And I honestly do recommend reading this book because it's a lot of fun. It's really light. You can finish it in an afternoon. I found it to be a great palate cleanser because I read mostly gothic horror, so it's kind of a fun break from that. And, there's 11 sequels. There's 11 sequels, and again, at some point she does pivot more towards adults, so I do recommend. So just some final thoughts. I think that the premise of the book is pretty unique. I know that there are a lot of coming-of-age stories in the YA genre, and there's a lot of stories involving royalty or being a princess or whatever in the same genre, but I think this story with these characters written when it was is just something really special. Definitely different from the movie. In my opinion, a lot more fun. So that's that on that for the Princess Diaries. I had an amazing time reading this book, rereading this book, doing more of a deep dive. I feel like I haven't done this much work since I graduated from undergrad, which I kind of missed. Thank you so much for being patient with me while I figure out how to put this all together, especially with the audio. I know without even starting to edit that it's going to be a little bit wonky, but I promise I'm learning how to do it, and it will get better. If you're watching or listening and you have a book that you really, really want me to talk about, leave me a comment or a DM on Instagram. There are about 40 titles on my list right now, but if yours isn't on there, I will add it and I will talk about it eventually. If you're looking to dive even deeper into this book, I have left a couple sources in my description that I took a look at when I was getting into it. One of them is a thesis about the Princess Diaries as a feminist text, and the other one is about the 2000s and the invention of chick lit for kids. They were both very interesting. They were just a little bit dense for me to get into this time around. I'm more than willing to get more academic though, so let me know if you want that. I have 2 liberal arts degrees and I love to talk, so I could do this all day. I also like to keep up the illusion of democracy around here, so in the next couple of days after I post this, I will be putting a poll on my Instagram story so people can vote for my next book, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much to my friends Kat, Courtney, Joel, Audrey, my friend Kirsten, who did all of the channel art. Thank you to Hannah, Jess, my mom, my friend Layla for bullying me daily until I finished recording this episode. And finally, thank you to my boyfriend Mike, who probably could have hosted this episode himself. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next one.